All right, this is the first video about motivation and work. So this is in your textbook modules 36 through 39. So the beginning part, module 36, is what we're focusing on. We're talking about motivational theories or perspectives. So to start with, we have to define what motivation means. Motivation is the need or desire that energizes and directs behavior. So these are things that will drive your behavior, that will change, cause you to do a specific behavior over another. So there's a few different theories about what is causing motivation, what motivates people. So this also goes along with your motivational perspectives chart that I had you guys do in class, comparing the four major theories. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the first three, the instinct and the drive reduction and the arousal theory, but I'm going to spend most of the time talking about the hierarchy of needs because that's the one that's kind of misunderstood the most. So, first of all, instinct or evolutionary theory. The instinct or evolutionary theory was based off the idea of animals. And this is the idea that there is some sort of biological force that causes an organism to act in a certain way. So, for example, you can have, talk about cats, okay? Animals like cats. They all, just doesn't matter if you're talking about house cats, you're talking about cats in the wild, cats at the zoo. They will all go and instinctually know, how to play or instinctually know how to fight with each other. And so they will do this without having to learn how to do it, okay? So these are going to be things that explain their motivation for why they do things. Other examples could be including if you have a pregnant animal, a mammal, or a bird, instinctually knowing how to build a nest, okay? That they don't have to learn how to do it, they just you just know how to do it. So this fits with the evolutionary perspective because it talks about our ability to survive as a species. So instinctually what has kind of come about to help us survive as a species. Now the good side of this is it's good at explaining behaviors that maybe are a result of instinct and a result of not really thinking about it, but it doesn't really explain human behaviors most often because it doesn't really, there's a lot of things that we do that we think about, and it's not instinctual and it's not innate, okay? So it's hard to be able to determine that. It also fails at trying to explain learned behaviors. So the instinctual evolutionary theory is good at explaining some behaviors, but not all. The second theory is the drive reduction theory. And the drive reduction theory is the idea that people are trying to maintain this balance of our physiological needs. So this is kind of like our biological needs. And so the drive reduction theory is the idea that you're aware of whatever your physical needs are, and your physical needs will drive your behavior, will motivate your behavior. So for example, you could talk about you need obviously food, water, shelter, clothing, and if you talk about someone who can't afford those things on their own, okay, maybe somebody who's poor, what are they going to do to be able to meet those needs? Their physical needs are going to drive them, motivate them to meet those needs in any way possible, which could include crime. Right? So you could have, for example, this mouse, desperately hungry, still going to seek out the cheese on the end of the mouse trap, even though obviously he knows that it's a trap, right? This also goes and explains somewhat individuals as far as employees. So this is talking about what motivates your employees. Should you find out before they run away? Are your employees motivated by the awards, by the money that they pay, or are they motivated by the intrinsic value? So the drive reduction theory is going to be more about you're driven to achieve something, you're driven to meet some of your physiological needs. Now, it can work with some learned behavior, like, for example, learning that, oh, I work harder, I could get a raise, so therefore I can pay for my food, my water, my shelter, my clothing, okay? But at the same point in time, it doesn't really explain behaviors that you don't really have you don't have a physical drive for, you don't have a physical motive. It also does not explain, for example, when you don't have a carrot in front of you, you don't have a incentive in front of you. For example, if you're talking about sports, okay, what motivates you to work hard in sports? I mean, chances are, I hate to say it, hate to burst your bubble here, but you probably are never going to make it big in the pros. You probably are never going to, get a gold medal in the Olympics, whatever. But what drives you then to do better in sports? What drives you to practice harder in sports? Okay, so the drive reduction theory doesn't really explain that. One that does a fairly good job of explaining that is the arousal theory. Now, the arousal theory is the idea that we are all kind of working to try and achieve, working towards some sort of task where you are going to be adequately interested in it, okay? So you're seeking thrills, you might say, okay? So you're mostly trying to seek arousal. So for example, what happens is that if you have something that is very low arousal, as a result, you're not going to perform very much in that particular area. So I'll give you, for example, if you're talking about like classes, okay? So you have a lot of different classes, and you can think of, for example, classes that maybe for you are really easy, right? They're very easy classes. It's not hard. It's just, going through the motions. You're like, ugh, I got a lot of busy work or whatever. So as a result, it's very low arousal. You're not very interested in it, right? So as a result, you're not going to work very hard in it either, okay? Because you're bored. However, on the flip side of this, when you have a high arousal, okay, and it's too much, for example, classes where they're very intense, you're really interested in it, but it's just so hard. Oh my gosh, I can't possibly do this. What happens is that you give up, right? It causes so much stress and panic that you just give up, okay? You want some sort of arousal in the middle where you are maybe interested in the topic. It does cause you some stress, but you know that if you work at it, you can go and improve, and you're going to see some results. This also is really good at explaining that idea of sports, okay? You are not going to be involved in sports that you find too easy, right? Because they're too easy. You don't want to do them. They bore you. You're not going to be involved in sports that you're not good at all and you can't do at all because it's too hard. You're not going to see any results. So you look for the sports that you're pretty good at and that you can improve at, okay? That's the arousal theory. Arousal theory is you're basically looking for that thrill. Okay, so you're looking for something that fits that kind of nice sweet spot in the middle of where, I get a good thrill, it gives me a challenge, right? But it's not too much and it's not too little. So we're constantly looking for that nice sweet spot of our arousal. Now, this is really good, at explaining some things, but not at others. Okay, so this is really good at explaining kind of intrinsic motivation. Okay, those things inside you that motivates you and drives you to be better. But it doesn't really do a very good job of explaining extrinsic motivation. So, for example, things that maybe the money that is motivating you to work harder at work, or being able to get that food or whatever. So the arousal theory is good at intrinsic, but not so much at extrinsic. Now, the last theory is the hierarchy of needs. And hierarchy of needs goes with Abraham Maslow. So Abraham Maslow explained the hierarchy of needs. And there's a lot of misconceptions with Maslow's theory. A lot of people look at it, and this is, I'll show it to you in a minute, but this is the pyramid, right? And a lot of education majors talk about it in college, okay? And I'll explain why. But one of the big misconceptions is that there aren't any exceptions to the order, that you have to go by the strict order. So there are exceptions to this order of needs. So I'll give you an example. For like example, Gandhi. Okay, so here's the order of the hierarchy of needs according to Maslow. So according to Maslow, the way he drew it and intended it, you had to start with your physiological needs, and you have to, for example, be well fed and hydrated and sleep and all of those physiological needs before you can move on to the next level, which is safety and feeling safe at your job, feeling safe in your family and in your health and in your property. And then you can go up to the sense of belonging, and feeling like you belong somewhere, and that you have friends and you have family, even sexual intimacy, and feeling like you can share your life with somebody. Okay, but the way Maslow intended it, he drew this, is that for the most part, you have to build one on top of the other. It's like a pyramid. But at the same point in time, there are people like, for example, Gandhi over here, that he was way at the top and with morality and self-actualization, but because he was trying to make a point and make a stance, he would go and, starve sometimes and go on fasting binges. Okay, there's lots of examples of, for example, saints that would do this as well. They were trying to achieve a self-actualization, but they would skip that physiological needs. Okay, so it's not a strict order. All right. A given need also does not need to be met 100% of the time before you need to go on to the next need. So you could, get some basic food and water, not enough, but then you could go on and talk about safety. You could have a few friends, not a whole lot, before you talk about self-esteem. And then the way that a need is met varies across different cultures. So some cultures, for example, when you talk about love and belonging, they are much more open about the group as a whole and providing belonging and your sense of belonging, as well as the safety of the group. And others, when we talked about the individualism versus collectivism. So individualism, they're more about what the individual needs. And then lastly, behavior is oftentimes motivated by more than one need. So your behavior and your drive, for example, when you're the new kid in school and it's lunchtime and you're looking around for a place to sit, right? You want to go, and your daringness to go walk across that barren desert of the school cafeteria and go sit down with some new people. You're trying to not only fulfill that sense of belonging, but also it also helps with your confidence, right? And you're trying to fulfill your confidence of, I can do this. I can go make some new friends, right? So you can fulfill more than one need with a specific behavior. Okay, so those are the motivational theories. Let me know if you have any questions.